It happens faster than people realize. A crowded sidewalk. Two strangers moving in opposite directions. A shoulder bump. No punch. No shove. Not even an argument yet. Just a look. One of them stops walking. Turns around. Stares a second longer than necessary. That's when the fight is already lost. Not because of strength. Not because of skill. But because of everything that happens before the first punch. The body stiffens. The hands lower. The feet stop moving. Distance disappears. The other man notices it immediately. He sees hesitation. He sees indecision. And predators don't wait for punches. They wait for openings. Most people believe street fights are decided by who hits first. That's a comforting lie. Because it suggests that speed and aggression are what matter most. They're not. Street fights are decided before anyone throws a punch. They're decided when someone ignores a warning sign. When someone freezes instead of moving. When someone stands still instead of creating distance. The punch is just the result. The real mistake already happened. People who get hurt often say the same thing later. I didn't see it coming. It happened so fast. I didn't think it would turn into that. But the signs were there. The change in posture. The shift in tone. The way the space between bodies closed. The fight wasn't sudden. It was predicted. And once that first punch finally lands, it's already too late to fix what went wrong. Because the moment you lose awareness, the moment you lose position, the moment you stop moving, you've already lost the fight. And the most dangerous part? Most people never realize when it happened. They think they lost with the punch. They didn't. The real loss happened earlier. Most people think violence starts with action. A punch, a shove, a sudden explosion. That belief is comforting because it suggests that if you're fast enough, strong enough, or aggressive enough, you'll be fine. But real street violence doesn't work like that. The body doesn't react first. The mind does. Before the first punch is thrown, a series of silent decisions has already been made. And those decisions determine who's in control long before anything turns physical. People lose street fights because they misunderstand timing. They believe timing means speed. They believe timing means striking first. They believe timing begins when fists are already moving. It doesn't. Timing begins the moment awareness fades. The moment you stop reading the situation and start reacting emotionally, you're already behind. This is why so many confrontations look the same when you watch them afterward. The person who gets hurt isn't slower. They aren't weaker. They're mentally late. Late to notice the shift in tone. Late to see the change in posture. Late to recognize intent. By the time they realize what's happening, the situation has already moved past the point where skill matters. Because street fights punish hesitation far more than inexperience. When someone intends to attack, they don't announce it. They don't square up like in a gym. They don't wait for a signal. They exploit moments. Moments when your hands are down. Moments when your feet are planted. Moments when your attention is divided. That's why the first punch often comes as a surprise. Not because it was fast, but because it was expected too late. And once surprise enters the equation, everything changes. Your body reacts poorly to unexpected violence. Your coordination drops. Your balance suffers. Your breathing spikes. Even trained people struggle when caught off guard. This is the hidden disadvantage most people never prepare for. They train techniques. They train strength. They train endurance. But they don't train awareness. They assume danger will be obvious. They assume they'll have time to respond. They assume they'll recognize the moment it becomes serious. Those assumptions are what cost people the fight before it even starts. Because in real confrontations, the person who's prepared isn't the one who hits first. It's the one who recognized the moment earlier. And most people miss it. That's why the punch feels sudden. That's why it feels unfair. That's why people say it came out of nowhere. It didn't. The loss happened quietly, seconds before, when awareness dropped and the situation was misread. And this misunderstanding leads directly to the next mistake. Because once people miss the signs, they place themselves exactly where they shouldn't be. And that mistake is even harder to recover from. Most people don't get caught off guard because they're unaware. They get caught off guard because they misinterpret what they see. The human brain is very good at ignoring uncomfortable signals, especially signals that suggest danger is coming. We prefer normality. We want things to stay calm. So we downplay warning signs instead of acting on them. This is where most street fights are truly lost. Intent is rarely hidden. It's just ignored. The body gives it away long before the first punch. The shoulders tense. The jaw tightens. Breathing changes. Hands start moving differently. Someone stops talking and starts watching. Someone shifts their weight. Someone invades space without asking. These are not random movements. They're preparation. But most people don't recognize them because they're still thinking socially, not defensively. They're focused on manners, appearances, and not overreacting. So they stay in place. They tell themselves it's probably nothing. They assume the other person will calm down. They wait for certainty. And that waiting is fatal, because certainty only arrives after the punch. People who get hurt often say, "I didn't think he was serious." What they really mean is, "I didn't want to believe he was serious." That hesitation creates the opening. When intent is present, distance becomes everything. But instead of creating space, people allow it to close. They stand still. They let the other person step closer. They stay within striking range without realizing it. That's not confidence. That's vulnerability. The most dangerous part is that this mistake feels passive. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like doing nothing. But doing nothing is still a decision. And predators recognize it instantly. Someone who intends to attack is scanning for cues. Hesitation, stillness, confusion. When they see it, they act. Not because they're stronger, not because they're faster, but because they're ready. This is why many street fights look unfair. One person seems completely unprepared while the other explodes into action. The difference wasn't physical, it was awareness. By the time the victim realizes the intent was real, the distance is gone and reaction is late. That's why the punch lands clean. That's why balance is lost. That's why everything unravels so quickly. The fight wasn't decided by power. It was decided by misreading intent. And once that mistake happens, the next one follows immediately. Because after intent is missed, people place themselves in the worst possible position. And that position makes recovery almost impossible. Once intent is missed, positioning becomes the silent killer. People don't realize they've already placed themselves in danger. They think they're still deciding what to do, when in reality, the decision has already been made by where they're standing. They stop moving, feet plant on the ground. Weight settles evenly. Hands drop or freeze. This feels stable. It feels calm. It feels controlled. It isn't. Standing still in a street confrontation is one of the worst positions you can choose. It removes options. It removes distance. And it hands initiative to the other person. Movement is information. Stillness is permission. When you don't reposition, you allow the other person to close space on their terms. You allow angles to form. You allow surprise. And the street punishes that instantly. People often back themselves into bad positions without noticing. Near walls. Near parked cars. Near corners. Places where escape disappears and balance becomes fragile. They don't think about exits. They don't think about footing. They don't think about who else might be around. They're still thinking socially, not tactically. This is why trained people still get caught. Not because their techniques fail, but because their positioning fails first. Technique can't save you when you've already given up space and mobility. Before we go any further, take a moment and comment the city you're watching from. I want to know where people are facing these situations right now, because the mistakes we're talking about don't belong to one country or one culture. They happen everywhere. Here's the brutal part. Once you're poorly positioned, speed won't save you. Strength won't save you. Even awareness won't fully recover what's already been lost. Because now you're reacting from disadvantage. Your back might be partially turned. Your feet might be crossed. Your balance might be compromised. And when the first punch comes, it doesn't need to be powerful. It just needs to land while you're unprepared. That's when people stumble. That's when they fall. That's when chaos takes over. All because of a simple decision made seconds earlier. Staying still instead of moving away. And once this happens, the fight stops being about two people. It becomes about everything else around you. And that's where things spiral even faster. This is where the illusion of control completely collapses. Most people imagine street fights as one-on-one events. Two people, one problem, one outcome. That image is false. The moment a confrontation escalates, it stops being personal and starts being chaotic. Surprise enters first. Not the surprise of a punch, but the surprise of everything else you didn't account for. Movement behind you. Noise to your side. Someone stepping closer when you weren't looking. Your brain is still locked on the person in front of you, but the street doesn't care about your focus. It keeps moving. This is where people realize too late that they're not alone. Friends appear. Bystanders crowd in. Someone pulls out a phone. Someone else picks up an object. What felt like a contained situation suddenly has multiple variables, and you're reacting instead of deciding. Surprise is powerful because it breaks rhythm. It steals timing. It creates hesitation at the exact moment when hesitation is fatal. Even trained people struggle here. Not because they lack skill, but because they trained in controlled environments. One opponent, clear rules, predictable space. The street offers none of that. Someone grabs you while you're focused elsewhere. Someone shoves you unexpectedly. Something hits you from an angle you never saw. And once surprise lands, chaos takes over. Your body reacts faster than your mind. Movements become sloppy. Balance disappears. Breathing spikes. Vision narrows even more. This is when people fall. Not because they were knocked out, because they were overwhelmed. The ground comes up fast. Concrete replaces air. And recovery becomes nearly impossible. This is also where weapons appear. Not dramatic ones. Everyday objects. Bottles. Sticks. Rocks. Anything within reach. They weren't part of the plan. But now they're part of the reality. And here's the harsh truth most people never accept. Once chaos enters the situation, there is no skill level that guarantees safety. There is only damage control. This is why so many street fights look messy on video. Not technical. Not clean. Just confusion and collapse. The person who loses is rarely the one who's weaker. It's the one who lost control of the situation before chaos arrived. And when chaos takes over, the outcome is decided in seconds. Because now the environment is involved, and the environment always tips the scales. This is where people finally realize what losing before the first punch really means. Because by the time someone hits the ground, the damage is already done. It happens fast. A stumble, a fall, a head hitting concrete. No long exchange. No dramatic fight. Just a sudden, irreversible outcome. People assume consequences only come from prolonged violence. They imagine injuries require dozens of punches. That's another illusion. Most serious injuries in street fights happen in the first few seconds. A broken jaw from an unexpected strike. A concussion from hitting the ground. A neck injury from falling the wrong way. And once someone is down, the situation becomes even more dangerous. Panic spreads. People shout. Someone runs. Someone else keeps attacking. What began as a confrontation now looks like a crime scene. This is also where the legal consequences quietly begin. Because the law doesn't ask who was confident. It doesn't care who meant well. It doesn't analyze ego. It looks at outcomes. Who fell? Who struck? Who escalated? Who failed to disengage? Videos are reviewed. Witnesses give statements. Timelines are reconstructed. And if you lost awareness, missed intent, stayed in a bad position, and allowed chaos to take over, all of that is visible in hindsight. Even if you never intended to seriously hurt anyone. Even if you believe you were defending yourself. Even if it all happened in seconds. Legal systems are slow. Consequences are not. Arrests don't always happen immediately. Sometimes they come later when adrenaline has faded and reality settles in. Charges, court dates, lawyers. And even if you avoid prison, the cost doesn't disappear. Medical bills, lost work, permanent records. All traced back to a moment where the fight was already lost before it ever looked like one. This is why the idea of who hits first is meaningless. Because by the time the first punch lands, you're no longer deciding outcomes. You're reacting to consequences. And that's the worst position to be in. Because now control is gone. And once control is gone, the street decides everything. Winning a street fight doesn't start with violence. It starts with recognition. The ability to notice the moment before everything goes wrong and act while you still have options. This is the mindset most people never develop. They train reactions. They train techniques. They train strength. But they don't train decision-making under uncertainty. Real self-defense is not about dominating someone. It's about avoiding the moment where domination becomes necessary. People who stay safe don't wait for confirmation. They act on early information. They trust patterns. They respect discomfort. When something feels off, they create distance. When tension rises, they reposition. When intent appears, they disengage. They don't argue. They don't posture. They don't need to be right. Because they understand something crucial. The goal is not to handle the situation. The goal is to leave it. This mindset changes everything. You stop freezing. You stop standing still. You stop giving openings away. You begin to move early. You scan more. You choose safer angles. And most importantly, you don't wait until violence forces a decision. This is how people win before the first punch. Not by being aggressive, but by being early. This also means accepting an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes people will think you're weak. Sometimes they'll think you overreacted. Sometimes you'll walk away without resolving anything. And that's fine. Because those opinions last seconds. Consequences last years. People who survive real violence consistently share the same insight. The situations they escaped early are the ones they're most grateful for. Not the fights they won. The fights they never had. This mindset doesn't come from fear. It comes from clarity. It's the understanding that the street doesn't offer fairness, closure, or clean endings. It offers risk. And the smartest response to unnecessary risk is distance. Once you internalize this, street fights stop being mysterious or sudden. You start seeing the patterns before they fully form. And when you see them early enough, you don't need to fight at all, because you already won. Everything in this situation happens before it looks like a fight, before the punch, before the shove, before the chaos. Most people lose street fights because they miss the early moments that actually decide the outcome. They ignore intent. They stay in bad positions. They stop moving. They wait for certainty that never comes. By the time violence becomes obvious, options are already gone. Distance is gone. Balance is compromised. Awareness is narrowed. And once surprise and chaos enter the equation, control disappears. This is why the idea of who hits first is misleading. The first punch doesn't decide the fight. It reveals who already lost. Lost awareness, lost positioning, lost timing. The people who get hurt aren't usually weaker. They're later. Late to read the situation. Late to move. Late to disengage. And once you're late in a street confrontation, recovery is nearly impossible. The environment takes over. Momentum takes over. Consequences follow. This pattern repeats everywhere. Different cities, different cultures, same outcome. Because human behavior under pressure doesn't change. Street fights aren't random. They're predictable. And once you learn to see where they're really decided, you realize something important. Most fights can be avoided long before anyone throws a punch. And the ones that aren't avoided were already lost earlier. If there's one lesson this video should leave you with, it's this. Street fights are not lost because people are weak. They're lost because people are late. Late to read intent. Late to move. Late to create distance. By the time the first punch is thrown, the outcome is often already decided. Not by strength, not by courage, but by awareness and positioning. The street doesn't reward speed without judgment. It punishes hesitation and poor decisions. Winning isn't about landing the first hit. It's about never needing to throw one. Before you leave, comment the city you're watching from. I want to know where people are dealing with these situations right now, because understanding how and where this happens helps others recognize the warning signs earlier. And if you've ever seen a situation where everything went wrong before anyone threw a punch, share that experience in the comments. Those stories matter, and they help people understand how fast things really unfold. If this video gave you a new way to look at street violence, leave a like. It helps this message reach people who might still believe the first punch is what matters. Subscribe to the channel, because in the next video we're breaking down the self-defense habits that get people hurt instead of protected, and why trusting the wrong advice can be dangerous. Remember this. If the first punch decides the fight, it's already too late. Stay aware, stay moving, and stay safe. Until the next video.